Yeah, I'm back again. Sorry, internet. But the reason they're bringing me back is because I really love this car. It's a Honda, but it's not like a Honda you'd ever seen before. Oh, what is this? See? There's the badge. They say it takes a village, and we really have one here right now. What's your name, sir, and what do you do?
Daniel Bagley, I am the fueler.
Corey Lind, front-end mechanic.
Juan Carlos Cortez, front-end mechanic.
Terry Brown, team manager.
Michael Cannon, race engineer.
Santino Ferrucci, and I drive your beautiful Honda that's right in front of you.
Santino, I'm going to talk to Michael quite a bit, but I'd want to get into it with you. 2 months shy of your 21st birthday, and yet you're one of the few that have driven a modern era IndyCar and a Formula One car as well.
For the last 3 years, I was a Haas F1 development driver. I got to drive the 2016 and 17 iteration of the F1 car. It's a completely different animal to what's in front of us here today. Both amazing platforms, both can do pretty amazing things, so I'm pretty happy to be racing in full-time IndyCar championship.
Now, we know that the car that we're looking at here, this is definitely a different beast. Not as much downforce, not as much grip, yet overall top speed is different. These cars are a little bit more challenging to drive than an F car in a different way because they're a lot more loose and wide open.
And you're looking at a car that has 720 horsepower. It's got probably around 3,500 pounds of downforce. I mean, there's no power steering, no ABS, no traction control. Top speeds, Indy, we peak at 240 down the straights, and we average high 220s, low 230 speed time.
And you are driving for the first time at Long Beach this weekend.
Yeah.
This is why you're here in our backyard.
Santino Ferrucci said, "This is like no other street circuit that I've driven." That's right. Welcome to Long Beach.
Also have to say, like, super well developed, but single-handedly really going to bring the value down on the car.
So you guys are making me drive harder when we put these graphics on, because the aerodynamic flow, you know, it makes a little lip.
Typical Hoonigan. We scumbagged him into putting stickers on the car. Now it's going to slow him down. I'm sure Michael's going to have him make up the time somewhere. Michael, walk me through. I know this is a Honda.
It's a 2012 design, DW12 Dallara. It's gone through a bit of an evolution.
Yes.
It was designed in 2012. There's been a couple of revisions to the bodywork, the aerodynamic kit. This is what was introduced in 2017. We're running about 5,400 pounds of downforce at 200 miles an hour in standard conditions, which represents a fair chunk off of the previous iteration. The car in Indy trim will run about 2,500 pounds of downforce. Road circuit, street circuits, 5,400. Shorter ovals, about 4,500.
This is also a crazy series because I believe it's the only series in the world that runs street, road course, and oval. But one of the things that I heard was this configuration of the car, when it is looser, it actually pushes a little bit more than gives you an oversteer effect.
The tendency for the car in low speed corners is for it to understeer. That's just a function of how the car is set up in order to deal with the aerodynamic loads that we experience at higher speed. And you think, well, Long Beach, it shouldn't really matter that much. Well, it does, because we're braking from 180 miles an hour plus. We still need aerodynamic stability when we're braking.
Now, this is a Dallara chassis. It's the IR 1718.
The aero kit on this car is IR 17.
And the chassis is the IR 12?
Correct.
So the chassis is a spec chassis amongst the entire series. All the aero is spec aero, but you can change the aero based on road course, street course, or oval, but everyone has to run the same configuration.
You have some small, there's a variety of options. These little trim tabs at the end of the front wing, these are gurney tabs. You'll see some people run with them, some without them. Same thing at the rear. Rear wing is adjustable as well.
A dual element wing?
Three elements.
Three element wing, okay.
And we know from past experience, there are some tracks where the actual lap time will be improved if we trim the car. So if we take a little bit of downforce out, take the resultant drag.
But then when you take a little bit of downforce out, you're relying on this young man's hands to sort of be able to catch it in case he gets caught off guard.
Exactly.
The tires are also a spec tire. These are Firestone Firehawks.
They
correct?
are,
So,
yes.
And you
Single
have
supplier.
3 different compounds, right? You have a primary, alternate, and a rain tire. The blacks, the reds, and the elements between those.
Correct.
So we're looking at the blacks right now?
Yes, and this would be the primary tire. We
This
get
is your
7 sets of these for this event. We have 3 sets of reds available to us. We use those for qualifying. They're usually
red,
softer.
Obviously, softer compound wears more.
More grip, accelerated wear. We're mandated to run 1 sticker set of reds in the race. Sort of narrows down how you use the reds. During the year, we have primary tires for the ovals only. We don't have any option tires. We don't have any softer tires. Each one of the ovals we do, because of the banking, because of the loads we see, it's a unique tire to that track. And then same thing with the road circuits. The street circuits, this will be the same tire we use at Long Beach.
Now, if we move into the back of the car, what is the reason for this side pod now?
We've always had side pods. The shape of this one is dictated somewhat by some safety concerns. You'll see there's a large vent in the floor here. This is an anti-tipping device. If the car runs up over somebody and starts to get the nose up, it vents through there. The shape of this under tray, the sort of unique Coke bottle channel through here,
yes,
that is not necessarily a design element, that is an aerodynamic element. That's to make everything sort of work in harmony. If you go all the way up to the front wing end fence and the front wheel, the air coming off of here has to go someplace. We're punching a big hole in the air and it goes shooting right down there. Compared to a NASCAR, this is a very dirty car aerodynamically. Exposed wheels, the wings. There's an awful lot of turbulence around these cars.
When we get into the rear wing.
Well, this is the road circuit configuration.
Okay.
So road circuit, street circuit, same basic wing. The shorter ovals will only run the lower element.
So are you allowed a gurney flap on the lower element?
We are.
Okay.
And then for the Speedway, it's a completely different assembly. It's a very small rear wing, and the cord's probably about that long.
Notice that, yes.
It's basically a trim tab. It doesn't contribute a great deal to the total downforce of the car, but instead allows you to adjust the balance fore and aft. There's not much of a drag benefit in reducing wing angle, but at the same time, anytime you're putting downforce into the car, you're increasing the rolling resistance. And at Indy and qualifying, you're trying to get rid of as much of that without overstepping your bounds, because you still need some downforce to go around that track.
Before we get to the back, I want to talk about the suspension on the car. It's an aerodynamic element.
It is, very much so. It's a necessary evil. You do as much as you can to mitigate the drag penalty for having everything hanging out here.
And then in the rear, you guys have a pretty interesting diffuser going on.
This is part of the 17 aero package to sort of clean up the downforce from the top body of the car and instead generate it from underneath the car. So what used to be a single tunnel on each side is now effectively 2 tunnels with this large divider. It makes the car a little bit more rear ride height sensitive, but we're not relying on top body downforce to get the car around the track. So as a result, it's a lot less polluted when you're behind the car. There's a lot less weight coming off of it.
Okay, so let's get into your office, Santino. Obviously, single-seater, custom seat.
Completely custom seat. You got a 6-point harness, 2 over the shoulder, 2 over the lap, 2 through the crotch. Inside the car, this is our radio. So this is how we plug in. This one, so I can talk to my engineer, Mike. This is for G sensor. So we wear earbuds and they have G sensors in. So if we do have a crash, they can measure our concussions. This is for our in-car camera, which connects to my helmet.
Santino Ferrucci coming hard on the Mexican rookie.
Is this so you don't get lost?
Actually, yeah, because I don't know the track, so they put the numbers in for me, so I can be like, I'm in turn.
Let me check really quick right now.
We know where he is based on telemetry.
Show you how this works. This is a quick release. We can slip that on and off very quickly. We're told not to throw it.
That's a very expensive piece, yes.
So we have actually 2 more adjustments inside this car. We have a rear anti-roll bar and a front anti-roll bar. And now these rotation, so you can imagine what it does. So the car is pushing, you
get it to
push it
rotate a
down,
little bit
and you
more.
slide it back, and you have a couple of steps, and you can get the car to rotate.
Those are not magic buttons. That helps a little bit.
Yeah.
If you've got a handling deficiency, it may reduce the level of it, but there's
It's
no
not going to
panacea.
eliminate it.
You want to move them around when you're in the pits getting tires, and then once you get out back on track and you're on cold tires, once you're set, you move them back to where you normally would. You use them as that kind of an aid too to get your tires up to temperature. So we control everything. The bottom 2 paddles are clutch. So clutch in, clutch out. So as opposed to having it on your foot and having 3 pedals, because there's no room for 3 pedals, they decided it'd be a brilliant idea to put it on the steering wheel.
Well, along with everything else you have to deal with.
Exactly. So we only use these to get going. So basically when we leave the box every time, and we use them to go into the box. And to go into the box, we have to pull them, and then we press the beautiful orange button here that says neutral, put the car in neutral. That's it. And we actually can't have the car in gear while we're fueling. When we're in a pit stop and you put the car in neutral, you stop in the box. Your foot's flat because you want to keep the air building inside. You want to keep everything going because it's a twin turbo engine.
Oh, when you say air building inside, you want to keep the engine on boost?
Yes, you want to keep the engine on boost.
Okay.
It's about an 8-second stop with a full fuel load. Wait to put it in gear until the car's down on the ground. And then 12,000 RPMs later, you drop the clutch, do a nasty burnout, and you're on your way. So up, down on the back as well.
Okay.
We have 2 different modes for ovals and road and street. So road and street, we have overtake, which is, I want to say it's boost.
It is boost and RPM.
Boost
Is this
and
the
RPM.
push to pass?
It is
Yes.
push to pass.
For ovals, you use weight jackers.
What's a weight jacker?
A weight jacker is a hydraulically driven sleeve, typically put on the right rear spring, and it changes the diagonal weight in the car, and that affects handling.
Next two things that you have are ECU and engine maps. ECU and engine maps are designed for car electronics and boost levels and fuel levels and a lot of top secret technology that Honda hides from us that only he knows about.
Can we see the engine? Can we see part of it?
Certainly, you're going to have to find somebody with some tools. But
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, Santino, Michael, are now joined by this young man. What's your name, sir?
Roy Wilkerson.
Roy, what do you do here?
I'm the chief mechanic on the car.
What are we looking at here?
It's a twin turbocharged V6.
Only a 2.2 liter, correct?
Yep.
And what sort of power does this thing make?
They claim 750.
And there are two manufacturers who are supplying engines.
Correct. Honda and Chevrolet.
The biggest difference we see the engine manufacturers fighting for is
Fuel management, I would
Fuel
think.
management.
They both do different things with the exhaust.
Okay.
They're both twin turboed, whether it's a Chevy or a Honda, but it's how they use it and what they do with it that makes it very proprietary.
The intake, back in the day, if I recall correctly, used to go in through.
Yes, came in through here.
Well, there's nothing there now. So
Nope.
then I was like, where's the fresh air feeding in from?
There's one on each side.
There's a
Yep.
little shutter. Honda and Chevy do this differently?
Yes, the Honda is up here
Yep.
and high.
Yep.
The Chevy is actually in the middle. And it's not really for the air intake for the engine, it's for cooling purposes. That's how we regulate the temperature of the engine. It has nothing to do really with the air intake. It's always pretty much wide open and we get as much in as we can possibly get.
Obviously, on an open wheel car like this, the engine and the transaxle are a load-bearing element of the vehicle.
Correct.
You could see where it's actually mounted to the chassis here.
Right.
What kind of gearbox are we at?
That's X-Track. That's the company that makes it. It's 6-speed forward, 1 reverse.
And it's a semi-automatic dog box, essentially?
Yeah, it's like a motorcycle.
This box is spec between both the
Correct.
Hondas and the Chevys.
Correct. Even the bell housing is spec.
Can you guys change the gearing
Oh,
between?
all day long.
Do you guys change the gearing not only for tracks but conditions as well?
Oh yeah, air pressure, temperature,
Temperature.
the wind direction will dictate what gears you put in.
How many gear set options do you
How many do you want?
Wow.
I mean, there's all kinds of different final drives, which will dictate all kinds of different gear ratios.
What would you say, as a mechanic, the biggest challenge for you in working in a spec series is?
Finding anything that puts you ahead of the next guy. The placement of a bolt or a tie wrap, any place we can find to get any advantage over the next guy.
The aero loads that you guys place on these cars are so great that it could actually pull a Zeus
Correct.
quarter turn fastener out.
We use what they call Tridares, which actually comes from the aircraft industry. We have a version on our cars that almost everybody in the paddock has, but the airplanes don't even use. They're actually made just for what we do.
Wow. Could we potentially pull a wheel off and get the car up in the air?
Sure.
Well, that was impressive. You guys got the wheels off. You guys got it jacked up. Now we're going to see what it takes to slow this thing down, which you guys don't really do a lot of.
Try
to
not
make it
to.
go fast. You try to slow it down as little as possible. I believe this is a carbon brake.
Correct, yeah, carbon disc, carbon pad, sort of a derivative of aircraft brakes, actually. But these things don't even start to do anything until they hit 300 degrees C. Over a stop, we often see 850 to 900 degrees C. If you've ever seen pictures of these things, the brakes are glowing, that's why.
This is the glowing.
Yeah.
So now, Santino as a driver, when you're at ambient, these probably don't work too well.
No, so, when you come out of the pits cold with new tires and cold brakes, you go into the brake zone and kind of go, okay, now it's gonna stop. And once it's in the range, our job's also to try and keep it in the range. You don't want to overheat. There's a very, very fine balance and a very, very thin line you got to walk to keep brakes in window of temperature without overheating them.
Especially at the speed, when you have these massive ducts driving air in at nearly 200 miles an hour, it's cooling the brakes, so you're actually operating beneath operating temperature.
What we do is we choke off the brakes. We have a variety of ways of choking them off. There are panels and some guide vanes that we have inside here. And the target is a certain temperature at the end of the longest straight.
Now, Roy, these brakes are spec in the series?
Yep.
So everybody runs the same brake?
Yep.
Same thing with the carbon fiber cooling cover?
Yeah, that's actually, we call it a rotor guard. It's actually so we don't break the rotor when we're changing tires in a pit stop.
Are the rotors that potentially fragile with the carbon ceramic that you could chip one
You can
or something?
chip
or chip
yeah,
or
if
crack
you're not
one?
careful, you can chip
Really,
them.
really,
Yep.
really. So they hold up to that much brake pressure, that much temperature, but if you install a wheel errantly, you could potentially chip or crack
Break
them.
one.
Wow. How often are you guys changing rotors?
You'd be surprised that we just ran the last 2 events with the same set of brakes.
Okay.
They're very, very durable.
Do you change up rotors for speedways, ovals versus?
You'll run the lightest weight you can legally because hopefully you're only using them to come into pits.
Well, I'm gonna get down and dirty and see what's underneath here. This is not technically so much a flat bottom, is it?
It's not, it's a proper Venturi car.
The bottom is actually helping the car suck down to the ground, as opposed to a flat bottom, which is trying to just keep clearing air. This is actually trying to create additional downforce.
And even a so-called flat bottom car does make downforce depending on the angle of the under tray at the time, right?
Okay.
The air goes through here, is compressed.
Yes.
You can see the tunnels out back.
Yes.
The shape of the under tray sort of defines where the center of pressure is. You use the wings to trim it accordingly.
Completely.
For the speedway, for example, we have a different treatment for this opening. It's a much larger opening.
And this opening is to prevent the car from flipping over in the event that it
Correct.
contacts with another car and gets
Yes.
airborne.
We don't run the dividing strake that you see at the back. That is not used for the speedways.
Okay.
There is an infill that actually sits here, as bolts on, and it actually makes a bulge comes down. That changes the car's stability should it spin, keeps it on the ground. Very similar to what the hole does. It defeats the lift that the car can potentially incur when it goes 90 degrees or 180 degrees to where it's normally running.
Also, our skids, these are our skids, so these are actually with drag ground. So if you look, they actually have a lot of wear. Part of my job as a driver, my joint job with Roy, is to tell you how much the car's bottoming. Car's bottoming maximum speed. When we go to hit the brakes, car's getting essentially lifted off the ground. So we can't really slow down.
So they wanted to get as close to bottoming, but without bottoming.
Without bottoming.
Essentially. Okay.
Exactly.
Unbelievable. Well, unbelievable access, unbelievable knowledge, science, black arts, everything all involved. On behalf of all of us at Hoonigan, Roy, Michael, Santino, the people at NTT IndyCar, Glidell, everybody that partners with you guys, Dayle Coyne Racing.
Firestone.
You know, you guys are coin operated, you know.
We are coin operated,
The
very
people
efficient.
at David Yurman, thank you so much. And by the way, like, Hoonigan on an IndyCar. Never thought it would happen. You guys are either the smartest team or the dumbest team ever to partner with us. But
It's a fine line, my
it
friend.
really is. It really is. Best of luck at Long Beach. We're super excited to be even remotely affiliated with an operation as smooth as you guys.
Appreciate
You're
it.
very kind.
Thank you.
I love this. He just walks all over his own car.
Hey, see, it's talking to the rear.
Zero respect.